Nobody ends up in the NBA by accident. While it does take some luck to get drafted, nobody relies on luck alone to have a successful basketball career. But sometimes, unexpected strokes of luck happen even for NBA players. Sometimes, it's bad luck. Few things are less lucky or more embarrassing than scoring a basket by accident. Here are some of the craziest NBA shots that weren't supposed to go in. Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr. was a first-round draft pick, and he's played alongside some of the league's biggest stars. He's never been an all-star, but Nance is definitely not the guy you'd expect to make a mistake like scoring on the wrong hoop. Yet somehow, that's exactly what happened. Nance got his start in the NBA with the Lakers. They were the team that drafted him back in 2015, and he played there for 3 years. During his time with the Lakers, Nance developed a reputation for dunking and being a versatile player who could cover multiple positions on the court. But one year, during a Christmas Day game at home in the Staples Center, Nance made a play unlike any he's ever made before or since. Watch.
He's not there to shoot the basketball, but they need to get that. Last year was a problem. What was that?
There's no mercy rule in the NBA. That counted. But as the announcers were quick to explain, the point didn't count for Nance, even though he clearly made the ball go in. The 2 points were given instead to DeAndre Jordan of the Houston Rockets because he was the closest Rocket standing near Nance when it happened. It's a weird rule, and surprisingly, it isn't used very often. But that Christmas, Nance gave NBA history the gift of one of the best examples of the rule we've seen so far. For a Lakers fan base that was yet to claim LeBron or make the playoffs in recent years, this also may have been one of the most exciting things that happened all year. Russell Westbrook. Some NBA shots aren't supposed to go in because you already missed them. This has to be the rarest of all. During his years with the Thunder, Russell Westbrook managed to do exactly this with one of his many poster-worthy dunks.
Westbrook! Oh, and it goes in!
Try this 1,000 times and you'll never repeat it. It's amazing the ball actually went out of frame completely. It was no small point either. This was back when Westbrook and KD were teammates in Oklahoma City, and the Warriors were a major rival in the Eastern Conference. Westbrook's bizarre and insanely lucky dunk put the Thunder up by 2 points in a game that was close the whole way. The Thunder ultimately ended up winning, which must have been as big a morale boost as the lucky shot itself. Lob shots. Some NBA shots are accidents that help the team rather than hurt them. The most common way this happens is when a lob turns into a shot. This might actually be the most common accidental shot in the NBA, but even then, it's still a really rare event. You can see why it would happen now and then. The perfect lob has to be aimed at the hoop, but just slightly off to one side. It's also unique that it really does help the team. Most lobs are thrown from behind the arc, meaning if it goes in by accident, it's worth more points than the original play was going to be. What's strange is that no team, as far as anybody knows, has ever tried to design a play where they do this on purpose. If you think about it, it would be really effective. All the attention is focused on the player running towards the basket, so the person throwing the lob is usually able to get off a clean toss without getting blocked. Sometimes they're not being guarded at all. You heard it on NBA Central first, the secret lob three-pointer. If any team start doing this and demolishing their opponents, we expect a royalty check. Just kidding, but seriously, it's a pretty good idea. DeMarcus Cousins. When you think of the term circus shot, you probably imagine guards who jump up super high and make an acrobatic and graceful finish. But if there are two words that do not describe DeMarcus Cousins, they would be acrobatic and graceful. Well, maybe mellow as well. As good a player as the dude is, he's one of the last people you'd expect to see make a graceful circus shot. And in fact, he never really has. But Cousins has done something much more surprising and unusual. Several years ago, when Cousins was still with the Kings, he paid a routine visit to his future home arena in Oakland. During the final seconds of the first half, Cousins suddenly went D-Wade mode, driving to the hoop and scoring an and-one circus shot. This was a bit out of character for Cousins. It was also a totally unique circus shot because it was probably the least graceful circus shot of all time. Watch.
There's the triple team on DeMarcus. And how about that?
Stumbling and fumbling almost the whole way, Cousins jumped about 3 inches off the ground as he got fouled. Draymond Green was, of course, totally pissed about the foul call. He was also probably pissed, along with the rest of the Warriors and fans in attendance, because Cousins clearly got lucky with this one. There's no way he should have made that. Cousins, being a man of great restraint and composure, immediately took full credit for the play, and loudly too. but watching the replay, you can easily see Cousins had a little more than skill helping him out this time. Blake Griffin. The only circus shot that could even be compared to Cousins happened around the same time, while Blake Griffin was finishing up his years in LA. Griffin is absolutely more athletic than Cousins and can jump about 10 times higher, but he's still not somebody who's known for making graceful finishes. 99% of the time, Griffin drives to the hoop is for one reason: to slam the ball down as hard as humanly possible. But on the off chance he can't reach the rim, Griffin has demonstrated that he's able to finish more creatively too, even if it looks kinda clumsy and slow.
2-point game. Griffin to the basket, put it in.
This surprising move would soon come back to haunt him, however. Later that same evening, when the game was down the wire, Damian Lillard one-upped Griffin with a circus shot of his own. This put the Blazers in striking distance with less than a minute to play.
Tried to scoop a shot up and in, and he did. May have gotten hacked, but it goes.
It also pretty much erased Blake Griffin's earlier play from the highlight reel, even though it was easily a much more rare and surprising moment. Steven Adams. Another big man to try and score a less graceful circus shot than Cousins was Steven Adams. During the visiting game against the Jazz, Adams chucked up a total prayer after stumbling his way around the notorious Utah defense. Adams was probably hoping for a foul call. The Jazz fans were screaming because they thought Adams traveled. They probably thought this because, similar to Cousins, you would have to break out a magnifying glass to see that Adams actually jumped at all. But what nobody thought, probably not even Adams himself, was that the shot would go in. Adams was definitely lucky with the roll here, but at least he didn't lose his mind like Cousins did over how amazingly talented he must be. Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard has been in the NBA for damn near 20 years. In that time, he's been an All-Star 8 times, won an NBA championship, and has scored close to 20,000 points. But guess how many of those points have been three-pointers? Go ahead, take a guess. Well, it's not 0, but it's amazingly close. In his entire career, Howard has scored from beyond the arc 13 times. To put that in perspective, both Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have hit that many threes in a single game. Needless to say, Howard making a three is practically a unicorn sighting for NBA fans.
A three for D12 as he dances down the floor.
And he is never, ever contested by anybody when it happens. Howard's threes are definitely shots that are not supposed to go in. In fact, they're not even shots he's supposed to try in the first place. Part of the reason they might be so incredibly rare is he only attempts them when the game is already over and done with. Troy Williams. Troy Williams only played with the Memphis Grizzlies for one season. In fact, after going undrafted in 2016, Williams only played in the NBA for about 3 years. But during that brief period, he had some impressive highlights. One of the best is this ridiculous circus shot he put on the 76ers.
Williams throws it in while falling down.
On this list, we've seen some of the least graceful circus shots. We've also seen some of the most unlikely to go in, and we're going to see some of the most clutch as well. But this one gets a special place on the list because it might be the hardest. When you talk about sheer difficulty, it's hard to think of any shot too far above this one. And as I'm sure anybody on the Philadelphia 76ers would have said at the time, it definitely wasn't supposed to go in. Speaking of unlikely and clutch shots, however, let's look at one of the all-time craziest next. Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is a rival for DeMarcus Cousins when it comes to ungraceful circus shots. But instead of getting lucky with a clumsy finish at the rim, during the final second of a close game in Toronto, Jokic got lucky with one of the single most amazing shots you will ever see in live basketball.
We'll get it to Jokic. He's got it, and they have to foul him. Oh, he's threw it in! Oh!
Okay, stop the tape for a second. That is a Steph Curry range dagger 3 with less than 10 seconds to go, plus the foul. If this had counted, it would have gone down as one of the most incredible game-winning shots of all time. But tragically for Jokic and the Nuggets, the refs waved it off. Instead of a chance for a 4-point play, Jokic was given 2 free throws, both of which he made. That ended up cementing the final score and victory for Denver, but it had to have been a major disappointment still. Marcus Smart. Another would-be clutch shot that was just inches from counting was the shot Marcus Smart made in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Smart's clutch shot is turned up a notch even further because this was fairly deep into the playoffs. The Celtics were just one win away from advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they had a 4-point lead with under 5 minutes to go in the game. The Boston home crowd was on its feet and anxious to see their team get the final win. That probably explains why, after Smart made this ridiculous shot, Most of the crowd didn't even realize it didn't count.
Shot clock at 1, and it's going to expire. No shot. Wave it off.
Smart was less than a second from getting this off in time. Imagine if he had. This was an alley-oop three-pointer, and it was a damn clutch shot too. Smart would have put the Celtics up 7 and made the conference finals that much more in reach. Luckily for Boston, they ultimately didn't need this shot in order to win. They finished the evening with a 2-point victory, routing the Sixers in just 5 games and advancing to face Cleveland. Believe it or not, this wasn't the only alley-oop three-pointer to go in as the shot clock expired. There was another play not long before this one that actually did count, and you'll never believe who did it. Blake Griffin. That's right, Blake Griffin, the guy who dunks on players' heads and would have broken backboards if he played decades ago. Although it wasn't nearly as clutch a moment as Marcus Smart, Griffin actually managed to get an alley-oop 3 off in time before the shot clock ran out.
Right corner to Johnson with 2, with 1. Griffin has a force. Oh, me, oh my! A 3-ball by Blake Griffin.
Avery Bradley. One reason a shot isn't supposed to go in is if it totally humiliates your teammate. Avery Bradley didn't get the memo on that. A year or 2 before Marcus Smart hit this unforgettable shot in TD Garden, Avery Bradley pulled off an amazing circus shot of his own in the same building. There were actually multiple reasons why this shot wasn't supposed to go in.
Nothing doing there.
One was obviously that Bradley shot from behind the backboard, which is incredibly hard to do even if you get as many tries as you want. Another reason was because, just like Marcus Smart and Blake Griffin, Bradley was beating the shot clock by just a fraction of a second. But another reason this wasn't supposed to go in was because Bradley's teammate, Jared Sullinger, had just tossed up an air ball from the correct side of the basket. This would have been embarrassing enough on its own, but Bradley made it way worse. In fact, if you watch closely, you see that Bradley actually caught the bounce from the air ball after it dropped short of the iron. This had to have been humiliating for Sullinger. He probably should have been grateful too though, because Bradley's amazing play totally erased the air ball from the arena's memory. Kyle Kuzma. Another player to get insanely lucky with an and one circus shot is Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma takes the award for the luckiest shot of all time with his absolutely goofy play against the Phoenix Suns.
Lakers Kuzma. Oh, that goes in! That's gonna count. It does count.
This wasn't just lucky, it was a straight up accident. Kuzma literally lost control of the ball and it slipped out of his hands in exactly the right direction by sheer chance. It makes you wonder what direction Kuzma was trying to take the ball in the first place, if not that one. It also makes you wonder why this counted if Nikola Jokic's three-pointer didn't. Even if Jokic wasn't technically in the act of shooting, he was much more in the act than Kuzma was here. Well, that's all for today. We hope you enjoyed watching these NBA shots that weren't supposed to go in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any great content like this. Catch you in the next video.